The story begins with two children playing in the village. They pretend to be a wizard and a monster. During the game, the boy suddenly hits the girl on the head. She gets angry and asks why he did that. The boy proudly answers that monsters are supposed to lose to wizards. At that moment, an old man named Rabius walks over. He smiles and says the children seem full of energy this morning. The boy immediately asks him what he must do to become a wizard. Rabius sighs and explains that a person cannot become a wizard just because they want to. Wizards stand at the very top of humanity. Most of them are born from noble or knightly bloodlines that inherited special power from their ancestors. The boy is visibly disappointed. But before anyone can dwell on it, the mood suddenly changes. News spreads that a monster has appeared near the village. People say it looks like a giant leopard covered in black shadows. It is so large that it could crush a house. Rabius tells everyone not to panic. The village chief has already gone to the city to request a wizard. Once a wizard arrives, the monster will surely be defeated. That reassures the villagers a little. But Rabius still warns them to stay away from the forest. Without a wizard, defeating a real monster is almost impossible. Then someone asks whether the shepherd on Hisril Hill knows about the danger. The scene shifts to that hill. There, a young shepherd named Turan lies in the grass while watching over his sheep. He is bored out of his mind. Every day looks exactly the same. He mutters that at this rate, he might even forget how to talk. Suddenly, someone calls him a brat. Turan opens his eyes and sees Rabius standing there. Rabius scolds him for lazing around before sunset. Turan immediately tells the old man to move because he is blocking the sunlight. Rabius asks whether Turan is still angry about what happened in the past. Turan coldly replies that if he means the time he tried to turn his late mother's sheep into village property, then yes, he remembers it perfectly. He makes it clear that he has no intention of sharing the inheritance his mother left behind. Since they are obviously not close, Turan tells Rabius to stop wasting time and say what he came for. Rabius explains that a monster has appeared near the village. He says people describe it as a leopard as large as a house. Turan calmly says that sounds like a serious problem. Rabius asks if he is not afraid, especially since he lives alone and would be an easy target. But Turan sees through him immediately. He says Rabius is not worried about him. He is worried about the sheep. Then he insults the old man's bad breath and tells him to leave. Rabius gives up and walks away. Afterward, Turan quietly thinks about monsters. Monsters are magical beasts. Humans have wizards. Beasts have monsters. Since a monster appeared near the village, a wizard will soon come to deal with it. Turan admits that he is curious. He has never seen a wizard before. Then his expression changes. He smells blood. As evening falls, Turan follows the scent into the forest. Soon, he finds a body lying on the ground. It is Rabius. The old man is dead. Turan studies the wounds and immediately understands that this was no ordinary animal attack. This had to be the monster. Then he senses something behind him. He turns around, and the monster appears. It is huge. A leopard-like beast covered in black power. Exactly like the rumors said. The story briefly returns to the village. The little boy asks his father whether a normal adult can defeat a monster. His father answers honestly. If an ordinary man rushed at such a creature, there would not even be enough left to gather his bones. The boy becomes scared, but his father comforts him. A wizard will come. And when a wizard arrives, the monster will be killed with a single word. Back in the forest, the monster growls at Turan. Turan calmly looks at it and says one word. Die. The monster reacts, but it does not die. Turan narrows his eyes. Then the beast attacks. He speaks again. Stop. Its movement falters, but only for a moment. Turan clicks his tongue. He expected the first command to fail. but he thought he could at least stop it properly. The monster attacks with tremendous force. Turan avoids it easily. Now he understands. Simple commands alone will not be enough. So he picks up a stone and takes out his sling. He hardens the stone with magic. He spins it and fires. The shot slams into the monster with terrifying force. The beast roars. But Turan does not stop. He hardens his body. He becomes faster. Then he pierces through. With overwhelming speed and precise attacks, Turan strikes the monster again and again. He aims for the head. He gives it no chance to recover. In the end, blood explodes through the forest as his final blow lands. The monster collapses. It is dead. The forest falls silent. Turan stands over the corpse, covered in blood. Then, instead of looking proud, he mutters in annoyance that the villagers have really put him to work. While everyone in the village was waiting for a wizard from the city to save them, the truth was standing right in front of them all along. The one who killed the monster first was not a noble from the city. It was Turan, the lonely shepherd on the hill. After killing the monster, Turan clicks his tongue and complains that he ended up doing all that work for those villagers. Then he reveals something important. He is a wizard. Turan says he first realized he had special abilities 8 years ago. By the time he was 10, he could already make objects float through the air. Excited by what he could do, he ran to his mother and proudly showed her his powers. He told her that he could make things fly, he could create fire, and he could even make wind. That memory stays clear in his mind because it was the first and last time his mother ever got truly angry with him. She immediately shouted for him to stop. Then she made him promise that from that day on he would never use his power in front of other people. Turan did not understand. He asked why. His mother reminded him of the story about nobles and knights. She explained that nobles are descendants of divine beings who once came down to save humanity. Knights are different. They are descendants of those same bloodlines after their blood mixed with ordinary humans. Both can possess power, but they are not treated the same. Then she reveals the truth. Turan inherited his power from his father, who was a knight. And according to her, there are many evil nobles outside their town. Those nobles do not treat knights like people. They treat them like slaves. That is why she begged him to remember one thing. No one can ever know that he is a wizard. Turan promised her. And 8 years later, he still keeps that promise. He says he has no desire to reveal himself as a wizard, and no desire to leave the mountain. The next morning, someone bangs on his door. When Turan steps outside, he finds several villagers waiting for him. They immediately accuse him of killing Rabius. One of them angrily claims that Turan attacked the old man and left him outside to be eaten by the monster. Turan calmly yawns and asks if they are seriously trying to blame him for this. The more they talk, the more obvious their plan becomes. The oldest man in the village died alone, while the younger men were too scared to face the monster themselves. So now they want an easy excuse. And Turan is the perfect target. He sees through everything immediately. He tells them that shifting the blame onto him is the easiest way for them to avoid responsibility. That only makes them angrier. One man rushes at him and throws a punch. Turan dodges it with ease. Then, without hesitation, he slams the man down. As the others attack, Turan quietly uses just a little magic. Not enough to expose himself. Just enough to make the fight convenient. He mutters simple commands like telling them to fall over. He weakens them just enough so they cannot properly resist. Then he beats them down one after another. He does not need flashy spells. He does not need fire. He only uses the bare minimum, just enough to dominate the fight without revealing the truth. In moments, all of them are lying on the ground. And just like that, Turan has protected the secret he kept hidden for 8 years. As he stands over the beaten men, he coldly tells them that instead of causing trouble, they should have spent their strength burying the dead properly. Nearby, a few village girls nervously say they did not come to fight. They only came to see him. Turan says nothing to that. He simply tells them to drag these idiots away with them. After that, he goes back inside. Turan already knows what this means. From now on, the town will probably become even more troublesome. The villagers may try to cheat him the next time he comes down to trade. But he does not seem too worried. In his mind, if they try anything unfair, he can just beat them again until they agree to a fair deal. To him, that is simple enough. Then he hears another knock at the door. Turan frowns. After what just happened, he assumes the villagers have come back for more. He marches over in irritation and throws the door open. But this time, the person standing there is not one of the villagers. And the moment Turan sees him, the mood changes completely. The man at Turan's door is not a villager. He is a traveler carrying a sword. Turan immediately becomes cautious. He apologizes for the rough greeting and explains that a few unwanted guests came by earlier. Inwardly, he remembers his mother's advice. She always taught him to treat strangers with respect, no matter who they were. Still, Turan cannot help feeling suspicious. A traveler with a sword in a quiet countryside village is already strange enough. But a traveler with a sword in this sleepy old town feels even stranger. Even so, Turan steps aside and invites him in. Once inside, the two sit down to eat. Turan apologizes and says he has nothing special to offer. But the traveler looks at the table and says this is more like a feast. He quickly realizes that Turan has never met anyone from outside the village before. Turan confirms it. He says he was born here, raised here, and has lived his entire life as a shepherd on this hill. People from outside rarely have any reason to visit such a small and forgotten place. The traveler studies him carefully. Then he says something unexpected. For someone who has never met outsiders, Turan is surprisingly well-mannered. That means his parents must have taught him very well. Turan quietly replies that he learned everything from his mother. But she passed away a few years ago from illness. Hearing that, the traveler says she must have been a truly wonderful woman to raise someone like him. Turan thanks him, but says he is only living the way his mother taught him. Then he asks what could possibly bring someone like this all the way to a countryside town like theirs. The traveler gives a simple answer. He says he was asked for a favor. The people in this area are looking for someone to take care of a monster. That makes Turan freeze for a moment. Then the traveler calmly reveals the truth. He is a wizard. Now Turan understands. This must be the wizard the village elder was talking about. The wizard confirms it. Then, after a brief pause, he asks Turan a strange question. He says he can sense that a monster was in this area recently, but he cannot actually find one. That alone already makes the situation suspicious. And what makes it even stranger is Turan himself. Turan knows about the village elder. He knows about the monster. And yet he is sitting here calmly, without even trying to run. The wizard points out that if the monster attacked someone nearby, Turan should have been the first person to panic. Instead, he seems strangely composed. Then the wizard looks straight at him and asks the one question Turan never wanted to hear. "Who are you?" At that moment, Turan's thoughts go back to his mother. He remembers her warning. She told him that nobles can be kind when it suits them. They might treat knights like loyal hounds. They might even treat them like family. But in the end, nobles can always cast them aside, sacrifice them, or use them however they please. That is why she made him promise that nobody could ever know he was a wizard. Especially not other wizards. At that moment, Turan realizes the situation has become far more dangerous than he expected. If this wizard discovers that he is also a wizard, then keeping his secret may come at a terrible cost. For the first time, Turan seriously considers the possibility that he might have to kill someone just to protect the promise he made to his mother. The atmosphere turns cold. The wizard notices Turan's silence and asks why he will not answer. But then, all of a sudden, the tension breaks. The man laughs. He says that if Turan keeps making such a serious face, then his joke is only going to become awkward. Turan is caught off guard. A joke? The wizard apologizes and says he probably does not have a very good sense of humor. Turan quickly apologizes as well, saying it is his fault for overreacting. The man tells him not to worry. It was the first time he had ever made a joke to a wizard this young, and Turan's reaction was so entertaining that he ended up teasing him too much. Then, deciding to start over properly, the man introduces himself. His name is Kiorn, a wanderer. Turan introduces himself in return. He says he is Turan, a shepherd. The two continue talking over dinner. When they mention their ages, Turan says he is 18 years old. Kiorn casually reveals that he is 75. Turan is stunned. He says there is no way Kiorn looks that old. Kiorn explains that wizards age more slowly than ordinary people and tend to live much longer. Curious now, Turan asks how Kiorn became a wanderer. Kiorn says that after serving the Arabian family for 60 years, he left. In his later years, he wanted to roam freely instead of settling down in one place. To Turan, that sounds strangely romantic. And as the conversation continues, something unexpected happens. For the first time in his life, Turan realizes that talking to another person can actually be enjoyable. Not an argument, not an insult, not a burden, just a harmless conversation with a good person. And somehow, that simple experience feels new to him. Before either of them notices, it is already late. Kiorn stands up and says he should get going. Before leaving, he places an Arabian silver coin on the table and says it should more than cover the meal. Turan accepts it and says he hopes Kiorn's hunt goes smoothly. Kiorn smiles and tells him not to act as though they will never see each other again. He even jokes that he might drop by from time to time for another meal. After Kiorn leaves, Turan returns to his usual life. He goes back to gathering the sheep. But while doing so, he finds himself thinking about the conversation they just had. Kiorn was the first wizard Turan had ever met. And more than that, he was probably the first truly decent person Turan had spoken to in a long time. Turan remembers how his mother used to describe nobles. Arrogant, cruel, always looking down on others. But Kiorn did not feel like that at all. That only leaves Turan with one problem. How is he supposed to tell Kiorn that there are no monsters left on Hizril Hill? Meanwhile, Kiorn heads into the forest to continue searching. But the farther he goes, the stranger everything feels. There is definitely a faint trace of a monster's presence in the area. Yet there is no actual monster to be found. Then he notices signs of a battle, broken surroundings, disturbed ground, and clear evidence that something powerful fought here not long ago. Kiorn stops and wonders if the monster was already hunted before he arrived. Then his eyes land on something unusual, a stone embedded so deeply into a tree that it clearly was not thrown by any normal person. That alone tells him the one who hunted the monster was no ordinary fighter. For a moment, he wonders whether the village chief might have requested another wizard without his knowledge. But in the end, he decides it does not really matter. As long as the monster is dead, that is what matters most. Then suddenly, everything changes. Kiorn senses danger and turns around just in time. The monster appears again, but this time it is no longer a living beast. It is a monster's wraith. The corpse has been corrupted by leftover mana and transformed into something far worse. Kiorn is shocked. Only a fool, or someone completely ignorant, would leave a monster's corpse behind without dispersing its mana. If a wizard kills a monster and fails to handle the remains properly, the body can rise again as a wraith. That means whoever killed the original monster either made a terrible mistake or had some other intention. Either way, Kiorn knows he has no choice. He must destroy it. He forms a powerful spell in his hand and fires it straight at the wraith. But the moment his attack reaches it, the magic is nullified. Kiorn is stunned. His magic was cancelled. That can only mean one thing. The wraith's mana is stronger than he expected. A second later, the creature vanishes. Kiorn immediately realizes what happened. It countered his magic with magic of its own. Then the wraith suddenly reappears and strikes him hard, drawing blood. Now Kiorn fully understands the danger. This is no ordinary wraith. At the very least, this thing is at a level where only a lower-ranked noble could hope to challenge it. Even then, victory is far from certain. Kiorn grits his teeth. He never expected to encounter something like this in a remote mountain village. Still, he refuses to give up. If he is going to die here, then he will take the monster with him. He gathers all of his mana into one hand and prepares for a final strike. His plan is simple. The moment the wraith lunges at him, he will stab directly into it with everything he has left. The monster charges. Kiorn moves. And just as the two are about to collide, something flashes from the side. A glowing stone tears through the air and pierces the wraith. The creature freezes, then collapses. Kiorn stares in disbelief. From the side, Turan appears and calmly asks if he is all right. Kiorn can hardly believe what he just saw. A shepherd's jokes, he says, are pretty startling too. Then he looks at Turan and asks the obvious question. So he really was a wizard. Turan quietly admits it. But Kiorn is not interested in blaming him. Instead, he asks something else. If Turan wanted to keep hiding, why did he help him just now? Why not simply walk away? That question brings Turan back to their earlier conversation. He remembers asking Kiorn why he was trying so hard for the sake of this poor village. After all, with his power, Kiorn could easily live somewhere better and far more comfortably. Kiorn had answered that the villagers were pitiful people. They lived on the frontier, trembling in fear, without even basic protection. To Turan, that still sounded strange. It was not Kiorn's fault that they lived such lives. But Kiorn said a wizard is, by nature, someone who inherits the power of the gods. And if that is true, then a wizard should live with pride in protecting powerless commoners. Of course, he also admitted that not every wizard thinks the same way. Everyone has their own beliefs and their own way of living. Remembering those words, Turan finally understands his answer. That is why he helped. But before the moment can settle, the wraith attacks again. Both of them jump back. Kiorn immediately warns Turan to listen carefully. This enemy is not something they can handle casually. At the very least, it is a monster wraith at the level of a lower noble. He tells Turan to run back to the village and help the people evacuate while he holds it here. But even as he says that, Kiorn knows the truth. He does not know how long he can actually stop it. Turan, however, looks at the situation differently. He calmly says that if his next attack lands, then everything should be fine. Kiorn is stunned. Turan picks up a rock and begins gathering power into it. At first, Kiorn does not understand what he is seeing, but then the air changes. What is happening in front of him is something no mere hill shepherd should be capable of. One after another, stones begin to rise into the air. Blue mana swirls around Turan. The power gathering around him is overwhelming. And in that moment, veteran knight Kiorn understands that the scene before his eyes may be the beginning of something far greater than either of them expected. Because what he is witnessing is not just a hidden wizard. It may be the birth of a wizard powerful enough to turn the entire world upside down. And with a faint smile, Turan says that he was curious about his limits too. As the monster's wraith charges forward, Kiorn immediately tries to stop him. He warns Turan that no matter how talented he may be, this thing is still far too dangerous. According to Kiorn, they need to join forces if they want any chance of winning. But before they can coordinate, the wraith attacks again. In the next instant, Turan's stones shoot forward like a storm. Kiorn is stunned. One of those attacks moves so fast that even he can barely follow it. He realizes that what Turan needs right now is not protection. What he needs is room to grow. So instead of pulling him back, Kiorn makes a decision. He will force Turan's talent to bloom. Turan's first barrage slams into the monster, but the result is not what he hoped for. It is not working. That is when Kyorn shouts the truth. A wraith cannot be killed with physical attacks. No matter how hard Turan hits it, pure force alone will not finish it. Turan immediately asks how he is supposed to kill it then. Kyorn gives him a direct answer. With fire. Or lightning. Turan reacts at once and starts gathering flame in his hand. But even while fighting, Kyorn's thoughts are racing. For a wizard, applying magic to an object is already difficult. Applying magic to a living body is even harder, and properly controlling fire usually requires separate training. Yet Turan is doing all of this on instinct. That realization shocks Kyorn. Then another possibility hits him. If Turan was the one who killed the original monster, and if he had never absorbed mana before, then that means all of his current power was reached naturally. No monster kills, no absorbed mana, no formal training, and he is already this strong. That alone makes Turan a terrifying existence. Still, there is no time to dwell on it. The wraith keeps coming. Turan's flames begin to grow, but Kyorn quickly notices a problem. Turan is shaping the fire, but he is not maintaining it properly. So Kyorn shouts at him to stay focused. He tells him not to let the fire go out. If he wants to destroy the wraith, he has to keep pouring mana into the flames and burn every part of its body. Turan listens carefully. Then he does exactly that. The flames explode outward and wrap around the monster. The wraith thrashes violently inside the fire, but Turan does not stop. He keeps feeding the blaze with mana until the creature is completely consumed. At last, the monster collapses. Kyorn stares at the remains in disbelief. That wraith was monstrously strong. Even a high-level knight would have needed a lower-ranked noble to face it properly. And yet this shepherd from the mountains just burned it down. For a brief moment, Kyorn can only stand there and wonder what kind of monster Turan really is. Once the battle is over, Turan asks a simple question. Is it really over now? Kyorn says yes, but adds that there is still one thing left to do. If Turan leaves the corpse like this again, it could rise as another wraith. So this time, he has to absorb the remaining mana. Turan asks how. Kyorn tells him to imagine himself pulling something into his body. Turan nods and tries it. At first, nothing happens. Then green mana suddenly rises from the corpse and flows into him. The moment it enters his body, Turan feels something strange. Pleasure. It is an entirely new sensation. Kyorn watches closely and asks if that is really his first time absorbing mana. Turan confirms it. That answer leaves Kyorn speechless. For any wizard, absorbing mana is the fastest way to grow stronger. Normally, a wizard's mana increases slowly with age, but defeating monsters and taking their mana speeds that growth up dramatically. Yet Turan reached this level without ever doing it even once, which means his natural talent is beyond abnormal. Kyorn then calls his name and apologizes for the way he treated him before. He asks which house Turan belongs to. But before Turan can answer, he simply tells Kyorn to wipe the blood off first. Only then does Kyorn notice how badly he is still injured. Later, back inside the house, Turan helps bandage Kyorn's wound. Kyorn apologizes again, saying he feels ridiculous for making someone like Turan do this for him. That instantly annoys Turan. He tells Kyorn to stop talking like that. He says over and over that he is just a shepherd who does not even know who his father really was. Then Kyorn asks the question that has been bothering him. Why would someone with this much power live as a shepherd on an isolated mountain? Turan answers honestly. It was because of his mother's wish. She told him that there were nobles beyond the mountain, and if they ever learned he was a wizard, they would only try to use him. Kyorn listens and quietly says that Turan's mother was wise. That surprises Turan. He expected Kiorn to say she was wrong or overly cautious, but instead, Kiorn explains that she understood something important. Wizards possess great power, and great power always attracts conflict. To prove it, Kiorn talks about the war from 20 years ago, a war between the House of Arabian and the Great House of Sahar. So many people died in that conflict. Out of the 3,000 Arabian knights at the time, more than 900 were killed, nearly a third. And sadly, Kiorn says everyone close to him was among the dead. His friend, who dreamed of opening a small laundry shop after the war. His teacher, who always scolded him for still having much to learn. Even his beloved wife and son. All of them were slaughtered by House Sahar, while he alone survived. That is why he says Turan's mother was not wrong. A knight's life can be even more fragile than that of a commoner. But there is one thing she misunderstood: Turan's true aptitude. Turan is confused and asks what he means by that. Kiorn says it plainly. He himself is a knight with fairly good skill. But the fact that Turan could defeat a monster's wraith that even he could not handle means Turan's potential is not merely that of a knight. At minimum, Turan has the level of a noble. And among nobles, he would likely rank in the upper tier. That leaves Turan stunned. If his mother said his father was only a knight, then was that a lie? Kiorn says, not necessarily. Sometimes a weak child is born among nobles. And sometimes someone with noble class aptitude is born from knight bloodlines. After saying that, Kiorn tells him something even more important. He thinks it would be better for Turan to leave this hill and go out into the world. When Turan asks why, Kiorn explains that humanity desperately needs more strong nobles and knights. Humans still are not the absolute rulers of the world. Long ago, other races were driven back by the gods, but they were never truly erased. They are still watching, still waiting for a chance to rise again. And on top of that, humanity keeps weakening itself with internal wars between noble houses. That is why Kiorn says this era needs powerful people with conscience. People like Turan. Then he adds one final truth. No matter how calm Turan pretends to be, he clearly is not satisfied with life as a shepherd. That question strikes deep. What could Turan possibly gain by going below the mountain? Kiorn says that depends entirely on what Turan wants. Wealth, fame, authority, family, friendship. None of those things are easy to gain while living alone on a remote hill. He tells Turan to imagine it. He could destroy monsters that threaten people. He could become an explorer and venture into the unknown. He could even join a noble house and step into a far bigger destiny. As Kiorn starts to leave, Turan suddenly stops him. After thinking everything over, he admits that Kiorn is right. For the first time, he seriously feels curious about the world outside the mountain. Kiorn smiles and says he will support whatever path Turan chooses. Then, as if remembering something, he asks about Turan's bloodline ability. Turan blinks and asks what that is. Kiorn apologizes, realizing he has been speaking as though Turan already knows proper magical basics. He explains that bloodline abilities are traits inherited from the Freyans. They are what usually separate nobles from knights. Then he asks whether Turan has any special traits, anything besides ordinary magic. Turan thinks about it and says he is not sure. Maybe his physical abilities are stronger than normal. Maybe his sense of smell is unusually sharp. And he is very good at throwing stones. That answer makes Kiorn freeze. He stares at Turan for a moment, then says he thinks he knows. When Turan asks which house his abilities resemble, Kiorn gives him the answer. A great house, known as the Pursuers, or Hunters. House Sahar, the very same house that once fought a bloody war with House Arabian. And the moment Turan hears that name, the weight of his bloodline crashes down on him.